I held our newborn thinking my life was finally real, until I found a lab envelope hidden in her drawer, stamped paternity, sealed, and clearly not meant for me. Minneapolis, MN has a way of making everything feel sharper in winter. Streetlights like needles, the air outside the hospital so cold it burns your lungs, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own heartbeat. Inside, the maternity floor was warm and too bright, full of soft footsteps and that constant hush people use when something fragile is in the room. Our room smelled like hand sanitizer in those heated blanket carts. My daughter was swaddled so tight she looked like a tiny burrito with a pink knit cap pulled low. I sat in the stiff chair, my forearms aching from holding her for what felt like hours, and I kept staring at her face like it might change if I blinked. She had my chin, I told myself. Or maybe I just needed her to. Claire was in the bed, hair pulled into a messy knot, cheeks still flushed from everything she'd been through. She looked exhausted, but when she smiled at me, it was like she was trying to prove something. Like she was posing for a photo only she could see. Her mom, Deb, had been in the room most of the afternoon. Deb didn't sit. She hovered. She rearranged flowers that weren't ours, fluffed pillows that didn't need fluffing, corrected the nurse's pronunciation of our last name with the sharp little smile she used when she wanted you to feel small. Claire's sister, Megan, perched on the edge of the window seat scrolling her phone like this was a layover. There was a moment that should have felt perfect. The nurse, Kara, her badge said, came in with a clipboard and a slim plastic folder. Deb leaned in so fast her perfume hit me like a wave. Megan stopped scrolling. Claire's hand tightened around my fingers. "Okay," Kara said gently. "We'll go over discharge paperwork and a few forms." Forms. The word made Deb's eyes flick to Claire's face like a silent command. Claire nodded too fast, then gave me that same bright smile again. I didn't notice the first crack until Deb said, "We'll handle the paperwork. He's been up all night." It wasn't mean. That's what made it worse. It was said like a fact, like my role was obvious. Hold the baby, fetch the ice chips, take the photo, then step back when the adults talk. Kara glanced at me the way nurses do when they're trying to read a room without staring. "We do need the father's signature on a couple things." Deb's smile tightened. Megan finally looked up from her phone and her gaze slid over me like I was furniture. Claire laughed softly. "He'll sign whatever. He trusts me." I felt something weird in my stomach, like I'd missed a step coming downstairs. Trust wasn't supposed to sound like a way to keep you out of the room. Later, when Deb stepped out to get coffee, Megan followed her into the hallway and Claire's face changed the second the door clicked shut. Not angry, not guilty, just blank. Like she'd turned off the part of herself that performed. "You okay?" I asked, keeping my voice low because my daughter had finally fallen asleep against my chest. Claire nodded without looking at me. Her phone buzzed on the tray table. She flipped it face down so quickly the screen flashed a name I didn't catch. Then she looked at me again and smiled, like she'd remembered she was supposed to. "Can you grab my bag?" she said. "The gray one. I need my lip balm." The gray bag, diaper bag, really, was under the chair by the bed. It was stuffed with tiny onesies and wipes and a folder of hospital papers. I pulled it out and unzipped the front pocket. A folded note slipped out onto my knee. It wasn't a love note. It wasn't dramatic. That's the kind that gets you. It was just a sticky note, in Claire's handwriting, with 3 words and a date. "Don't forget, Tuesday, 10:30. No context, no little heart, nothing I recognized. I stared at it like it would explain itself, then shoved it back where it came from before she could see it in my hand. My chest felt too tight for the room. That night, when they finally let us leave, Minneapolis hit us like a wall. The parking garage smelled like exhaust and old snow. Deb insisted on pushing the wheelchair even though Claire was steady enough to walk. Megan walked ahead with her phone up, recording like this was her content. At the car, Deb kissed the baby's forehead and said, "We'll be over tomorrow. Early. You'll need help." I opened my mouth to say we'd figure it out. My schedule at the warehouse was brutal, but I'd already arranged a few days off, and I wanted our first night to be ours. Just us, figuring out diapers and crying and that scary, sacred quiet. Claire beat me to it. "That would be amazing," she said quickly. "Please." Deb's eyes flicked to me and the look was almost satisfied. On the drive home, my daughter slept in the back seat in her tiny car seat, her face turned toward the window. The city lights blurred on the wet roads. Claire sat in the passenger seat with her phone low in her lap, screen dimmed, thumbs moving. She didn't look at me once. When we got inside, our house felt wrong. Too still. Too normal. The living room lamp was on. Deb must have been by earlier to help and decided to make it cozy. The kitchen counter had a stack of paper towels and a new bottle of dish soap we didn't buy. Someone had moved things. Claire went straight to the bedroom. I carried my daughter to the bassinet we'd set up in the corner of our room, the little nightlight glowing soft yellow. My arms were tired, but I didn't want to put her down. I didn't want to break the one thing that felt certain. From the bedroom, I heard the soft click of a drawer. Then another. Then the sound of Claire's voice. Quiet, hurried, the way you talk when you don't want to wake a baby. I froze, listening. "No, I'm home now," she whispered. "Just stop. I'll handle it." Silence. Then softer. "I said I'll handle it." I stepped into the doorway. Claire jumped like I'd caught her stealing. She was kneeling by her dresser, one drawer half open. Her hair was down now, falling in waves over her shoulders, and her eyes had that sharp brightness people get when they're holding something back. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. She blinked, then smiled. Too smooth. "Deb. She's obsessed. She wants to come at 6 in the morning." "That didn't sound like Deb," I said before I could stop myself. Claire's smile faded for half a second. Then she stood up fast, shutting the drawer with her hip. "You're exhausted," she said. "We both are. Don't start." Start. Like there was already a fire and I was the idiot with the match. I didn't argue. I told myself it was stress, hormones, the day, the shock of being responsible for a tiny human. I fed the baby. I changed her diaper. I rocked her until my shoulders ached. Claire moved around the room like a ghost, folding nothing, straightening things that were already straight, checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. At 1:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with an email from work. The subject line made my stomach drop. Schedule update, mandatory coverage. I opened it with one hand while my other kept the baby's bottle steady. They'd moved my return date up. 2 days earlier. No question mark, no apology, just a line that read, "Staffing shortage. All supervisors must report." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Outside, the wind shoved snow against our window like someone trying to get in. Claire leaned over my shoulder. "What is it?" "Work," I said. "They're pulling me back early." Her face tightened, but not with concern. It looked more like irritation, like I'd inconvenienced her. "Well," she said, "we'll have help. Mom said she can—" "No," I snapped, quieter than the word deserved. My daughter's eyes fluttered open. "I don't want your mom living here." Claire's gaze went cold. She's not living here. She's already acting like she does. Claire opened her mouth, then closed it. The baby made a small sound, half squeak, half sigh, and the moment broke like thin glass. Claire turned away. "I'm going to shower." She walked into the bathroom and shut the door. The lock clicked. I sat there in the dim light, my daughter's small fingers curling around nothing, and I tried to breathe normally. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Then I heard it again, the soft click of a drawer. Not the bathroom, the dresser. I stood up carefully, keeping my daughter pressed against my chest. The house creaked like it was listening, too. I crossed to Claire's dresser. The drawer she'd shut earlier was slightly open, just enough that you could see darkness inside, like it hadn't closed all the way. I should have walked away. I knew that. Every good part of me said, "Don't do this." But the other part, the part that had watched Claire flip her phone face down, the part that had read, "Don't forget," on that sticky note, moved my hand before I could decide. I slid the drawer open. Under folded tank tops and a jumble of hospital wristbands, there was a thick manila envelope. New, clean, the kind that comes from somewhere official. A return address from a lab in town. One word stamped across the front in bold, clinical letters. Paternity. And in the corner, where my name should have been, it wasn't. I heard the shower turn off. Footsteps. The bathroom door opened, and Claire's voice, right behind me, went completely quiet. My hand was still on the envelope when Claire's shadow fell over the dresser. The room smelled like baby lotion and steam from her shower, but the air between us went cold. "What are you doing?" she asked. I didn't turn around right away. I stared at the word paternity, like it might blink and turn into something harmless. "I could ask you the same thing," I said. "Why is this in your drawer?" She came closer, barefoot on the carpet, and snatched the envelope out of my hand so fast it brushed my knuckles. For a second, she just held it against her chest like it was a secret she could physically cover. "It's nothing," she said too quickly. "It's hospital paperwork." "Hospital paperwork doesn't say paternity," I said. My voice sounded wrong, flat, like it belonged to someone else. Claire's eyes flicked toward the bassinet where our daughter was sleeping. She lowered her voice. "Don't do this right now. Not in front of her." "Then tell me," I said. "Why isn't my name on it?" Her lips parted and nothing came out. That tiny pause was like a door cracking open and letting in a draft. Then she recovered. "It's just a screening," she said. "They do weird stuff now. Deb made a big deal about family history and—" "Deb," I repeated. "So your mom is handling our medical paperwork now?" Claire's face hardened at her mom's name, but it wasn't anger at Deb. It was the kind of hard you get when you've already chosen a side. "You're twisting it," she said. "You're tired. You're looking for a monster in the closet." I took a step closer, careful, because my daughter's little breathing noises were the only calm thing in the room. "Claire, if it's nothing, open it." Her grip tightened. "No." There it was, clear as a siren. She turned and shoved the envelope into the drawer and slammed it shut like she was sealing it back inside the wood. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there and listened to my own pulse, heavy and slow, like a drum in a basement. Claire exhaled, like she'd just survived something. "Please," she said softer. "Not tonight." "Then when?" I asked. "When your mom's here at 6? When Megan's filming again? When I'm back at work and can't even—" My phone buzzed again in my hand. Another email. Same subject line. This time there was a line added at the bottom. Failure to report will be documented. My stomach twisted. Claire saw my face and immediately used it as leverage. See? This is what I mean. You're under stress. You're spiraling. I laughed once, sharp and quiet. I'm spiraling because my job just threatened me, and my wife is hiding a paternity envelope in her dresser. She opened her mouth to respond, but a loud knock hit the front door downstairs. 3 hard knocks like whoever it was already owned the place. Claire froze. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second, and then she smoothed her face into that practiced calm again. "Don't," she whispered like she was warning me. The knock came again, followed by a voice I recognized even through the walls. "Hello. I brought soup, and I'm not leaving it on the porch in this cold." Deb. Claire moved fast, pulling a robe tighter around herself, already shifting into daughter mode. "I didn't tell her to come now," she muttered, but she didn't sound surprised. She sounded caught. I went downstairs with my daughter on my shoulder, her tiny head warm against my neck, the softest weight in the world. When I opened the door, Deb swept in like she'd been invited by God. Megan was behind her with 2 reusable grocery bags and her phone in her hand, camera pointed down but ready, like a weapon with the safety off. "Oh, look at him," Deb cooed, reaching for the baby. "Give her to me, honey. You look like you haven't slept in a week." I didn't move. I kept my daughter tucked against me. Deb's smile faltered. Not fully, she was too good for that, but enough that I saw the irritation flash beneath it. "What's this?" she asked, glancing past me into the house. "Did something happen?" Claire came down the stairs, face composed, hair still damp. "Nothing happened," she said quickly. "He's just tired." Megan smirked. "He always looks tired." I felt my jaw tighten. I could almost see the scene as a frozen frame. Deb with the soup container held out like a peace offering, Megan with a phone half lifted, Claire standing on the step above us with one hand gripping the banister, me holding the baby like she was the last thing I had. On the side table by the door were my keys, my work badge, and the crumpled corner of that sticky note I'd shoved in my pocket earlier, poking out like it wanted to confess. Deb set the soup down and walked right past me toward the kitchen, already rearranging things with her eyes. "I'll warm this up," she announced. "You two can sit, and please tell me you're not planning to go back to work early. I told Claire you shouldn't." That hit wrong. I hadn't told Deb about the schedule update. I hadn't told anyone. I looked at Claire. She didn't look back. "Why do you know about my schedule?" I asked. Deb turned, soup ladle in hand, and gave me that calm, superior look. "Because your wife called me, like a responsible person would." Claire's voice was too bright. "I just needed advice." Advice. About my job. About our baby. About paperwork with the word paternity on it. Megan's phone buzzed and she glanced down, then up at Claire, and that little silent exchange between them made my skin prickle. My own phone buzzed again, not an email this time, a text from a number that wasn't saved. No name. Just 10 digits. "Don't open it. Not yet." I stared at the screen until it felt like the letters were burning into my eyes. Claire saw the glow and stepped closer. "Who is that?" she asked too quickly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Deb watched my face like she was measuring how close I was to breaking. Megan stopped smiling. And upstairs in our bedroom, that envelope sat in the drawer like a bomb with a polite label. I looked at my sleeping daughter and realized something that made my throat go dry. Someone besides Claire knew what was in that envelope, and they were close enough to reach me first. Raleigh, North Carolina has this way of pretending everything is normal. Sunlight on the driveway, neighbors walking dogs, the same grocery store playlist, while your life is quietly coming apart behind closed blinds. Deb was in my kitchen like she'd always lived there, stirring her soup as if the spoon gave her authority. Megan leaned against the counter with her phone in her hand, not recording, but not recording either. Claire hovered at the edge of the room with that calm mask she wore whenever her mom showed up, like she'd become a different version of herself just to survive Deb's orbit. I kept my daughter on my shoulder. She was asleep again, warm and heavy in the best way. I wasn't letting anyone just take her right now. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even have to look to feel the pressure of it. Claire's eyes tracked it like a hawk. "Who texted you?" she asked. I held the phone tighter, screen turned inward. "Why are you suddenly interested in who texts me?" Deb made a small, disapproving sound. "Because you're acting unstable, that's why." That word, unstable, landed in my chest and sat there. It wasn't a diagnosis. It was a strategy. Megan finally lifted her eyes from her phone. "If you're gonna freak out, at least don't do it in front of the baby." "I'm not freaking out," I said, and even I didn't fully believe it. My voice stayed low because my daughter's breath against my neck was the only thing keeping me from shaking. Deb set the ladle down a little too hard. "Then act like a man and sit down. Eat something. You can't go to work like this." "Why do you keep saying, 'go to work,' like you're my supervisor?" I asked. Claire flinched. Not at the words, at the target. Deb didn't even blink. "Because I care about my daughter and granddaughter, and I know what pressure does to men. They start imagining things." I stared at her. "Imagining? What? An envelope that literally says paternity?" Claire's face snapped toward me. Megan's phone rose an inch, instinct. Claire whispered, "Stop." Deb's expression tightened into something cold and patient. "What envelope?" Claire spoke too fast. "It's nothing. It's just paperwork." "You're lying," I said quietly. Deb stepped closer like she was about to take my temperature. "Listen to me. You are exhausted. You're working too much. You're emotional. And you are going to ruin your marriage over some misunderstanding." My daughter stirred, made a tiny sound, and I felt my throat burn. I adjusted her carefully, fingers brushing the little blanket tucked under her chin. Megan's voice turned sugary. "Maybe he should take a walk. Clear his head." Claire's eyes met mine for the first time in what felt like hours. There was something in them. Warning, pleading, control, all braided together. "Please," she mouthed. I hated that I couldn't tell if she meant, "Please don't embarrass me," or, "Please don't pull the thread." My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. "If you love her, wait." My stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my knees. Claire saw my face change and took a step forward. "Give me your phone," she said like it was the most normal request in the world. "No," I said. Deb's voice sharpened. "Claire, don't fight him. He'll turn it into a scene." Megan tilted her phone and I caught the reflection of my own face in her screen. Pale, tight, eyes too wide. A thumbnail-ready snapshot of a man about to snap while 3 women watched him like a problem they planned to manage. On the counter, Deb's soup container, my car keys, and Claire's breast pump parts drying on a towel like props from 2 completely different lives. I swallowed. Who else knows about that envelope? Claire's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Deb answered for her. "Nobody needs to know about anything. You're making it sound dirty." It is dirty, I said, and my voice finally cracked, because someone is texting me about it. Someone I don't have saved in my phone. Someone who knows what's in my bedroom drawer. Claire went very still. That stillness wasn't innocence. It was calculation. Megan's eyes flicked to Claire's pocket, her phone, then back to mine. Deb tried to soften her tone, like she was offering me a way back into the cage. Sweetheart, let me hold the baby so you can calm down. You look like you're going to drop her. I tightened my arms. Don't. Deb's smile vanished. Excuse me. I took a step back. No one is taking her from me right now. Claire's voice finally came out, thin and sharp. You're acting like we're enemies. Aren't we? I asked. That's when the second front hit again. My job, like it had been waiting for the perfect moment to kick the door down. My phone rang. A work number. I looked at the screen and felt my chest compress. Deb saw the caller ID and lifted her brows like she'd predicted it. Answer. I answered because I didn't have the luxury of ignoring anything anymore. Hello? A woman's voice, clipped and official. This is HR. You received the schedule update and the compliance notice, correct? I stared at the kitchen wall like it might hold me up. Yes, I received it. We have concerns about attendance and professionalism, she continued. Your supervisor reported you were unreachable earlier today. Claire's head snapped toward me. Deb's eyes narrowed like she was pleased. I wasn't unreachable, I said. I was at home with my newborn. There was a pause. The file notes that your wife called earlier to confirm you were unwell and might not be stable enough to drive. I couldn't breathe for a second. I turned slowly and looked at Claire. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. Her face had that same tight calm, like she'd already committed to the story. You called my HR, I said, voice barely there. Claire whispered, I was trying to help. HR kept talking, words turning into a blur. We need you to come in tomorrow morning for a meeting. In person. If you fail to report... I'll be there, I said automatically because panic makes you obedient. I ended the call and the room was silent except for my daughter's soft breathing. Deb crossed her arms. See? This is what I'm talking about. We're trying to protect you from yourself. Protect me, I repeated, and something cold settled into place. Megan finally lowered her phone. Can we not do this right now? The baby is the only reason I'm not screaming, I said. Claire stepped toward me, hands raised like I was a wild animal. I didn't mean it like that. I just told them you were overwhelmed. Overwhelmed, I echoed. So they document it. So it's on record. Deb stepped closer too, cutting off Claire's path like a general controlling the battlefield. You're twisting it again. You're paranoid. My phone buzzed in my hand one more time. Unknown number. Check the diaper bag, not the drawer. My skin went icy. I looked down at the diaper bag hanging on the chair by the table. Claire's bag. The one she never let me pack because you don't know where anything goes. Claire saw my eyes land on it and her face changed for half a second. Real fear, not performance. And that was all I needed. I shifted my daughter carefully into the crook of my arm, stepped toward the chair, and reached for the diaper bag zipper. Claire lunged. Don't! Deb barked. Claire! Megan's phone came up again, fast. My fingers touched the zipper pull, and Claire grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt. I looked at her hand on me, then up at her face, and I knew whatever was inside that bag was going to change everything. Claire's fingers were clamped around my wrist like a promise. Don't, she said again, But it wasn't a plea anymore. It was an order. My daughter stirred at the tension in my body, letting out a tiny whimper that made my stomach twist. I hated that the three of them could turn my own kitchen into a courtroom while my baby slept through the verdict. "Let go," I said. Deb stepped forward, chin lifted. "If you lay a hand on my daughter—" "I'm not touching anyone," I snapped, then forced my voice down. "I'm trying to open a diaper bag. In my house." Megan's phone was up, perfectly angled. I could see myself in it again. One arm holding the baby, the other hand trapped, my face half-shadowed by the window light, like evidence being manufactured in real time. Claire's eyes flicked to Megan. "Put it away." Megan didn't. She only said, "Just don't do anything stupid." That word again. Stupid, unstable, paranoid. They kept tossing labels at me like sandbags, building a wall around the truth. I inhaled, slow, then did the one thing I knew they wouldn't expect. I didn't yank my arm. I stepped closer. Claire's grip loosened on instinct as I moved into her space, and I used that half-second to slide my wrist free without a struggle. No dramatic pulling, no jerking, just slipping out. Then I took the diaper bag off the chair and walked backward until my shoulders hit the fridge. Deb's eyes widened. "Give that to Claire." "No." Claire's voice turned brittle. "That's the baby stuff." "That's why I'm opening it," I said, and I kept my eyes on hers, "because somebody texted me to check it." Her face did something strange, like a shutter closed. "Nobody texted you." I didn't answer. I just reached for the zipper. Megan's phone rose higher. Deb said, "If you do this, you're going to regret it." The zipper whispered open. Inside was the usual chaos: wipes, a spare onesie, a pacifier in a little case, a tiny bottle of sanitizer. Normal. Comforting, even. For half a heartbeat, I thought the message was a cruel prank. Then my fingers hit a flat manila envelope tucked behind the changing pad. I pulled it out slowly. Claire lunged, not for the envelope, but for my phone. "Stop, please." Deb grabbed Claire's shoulder like she was restraining her from me, but it felt like she was restraining her from spilling something. Megan's mouth parted, and for the first time her confidence wavered. The envelope had a lab logo stamped in the corner. Not a name I recognized, but a place in town. Raleigh, one of those clinics tucked into a strip of office buildings near the highway where you could get anything done quietly if you paid enough. Written in black marker on the front was a name. Not mine. My throat tightened so hard I could barely swallow. Claire went pale. "It's not what you think." Deb's voice sliced through the room. "Hand it to me." I stared at the marker, letters swimming. I wasn't even reading anymore. I was just feeling the weight of it in my hand, like the envelope was heavier than paper had any right to be. Megan said, too quickly, "It could be for someone else. People mail stuff to the wrong address all the time." "It was in the diaper bag," I said, "behind the changing pad." Silence. And then, because life has a nasty sense of timing, my phone buzzed with a work email, an automated reminder. HR meeting confirmation, 9 a.m. in person. Deb saw the subject line flash and gave a small satisfied nod, like the universe was cooperating with her. Claire took one careful step toward me. "Let's sit down. I'll explain." "You already explained," I said, and the words came out flatter than I meant. "You called my HR to say I wasn't stable enough to drive." "I was trying to protect you," she insisted. "No," I said. "You were trying to control the record." Her eyes flashed. "You're spiraling." There it was again. The script. My daughter made a soft, fussing sound, and the instinct to soothe her almost made me fold. I bounced her gently, pressing my cheek to her head, breathing in that warm baby smell like it could erase everything. Deb lowered her voice, deadly calm. "Put the envelope down. Give Claire the baby. Then go take a shower. You have an important meeting tomorrow and you're going to ruin it if you keep doing this." "Why do you care so much about my meeting?" I asked. Deb didn't even try to hide it. "Because if you lose your job, my daughter and granddaughter suffer, and I won't let your emotions make them collateral damage." Megan added, soft as a threat, "And if you keep holding the baby like that while you're angry, it doesn't look good." I felt my skin go cold. "Don't do that," I said. "Don't turn my hands into something criminal." Claire's voice cracked. "Please, not in front of them." Not in front of them. Like the audience mattered more than the truth. I looked down at the envelope again. The marker. The name. I wanted to rip it open right there, but I also felt the trap tightening. 3 witnesses, 1 camera, a baby in my arms, and my future already being narrated as a breakdown. So I did what I'd been doing since my daughter was born. I waited until I could breathe. "I'm going to my truck," I said. Deb stepped into my path. "No, you're not." I held her gaze. "Move." Megan's phone followed me like a spotlight as I sidestepped, heading for the front door. Claire moved too, faster than Deb, blocking me with her body this time. "Don't leave with her," Claire whispered, eyes glossy. "They'll say you kidnapped her." That word hit me like a punch. I stared at Claire. "You'd let them say that?" She didn't answer fast enough. Quiet dread rolled through me, slow and thick. It wasn't fear of Claire. It was fear of how quickly the story could be rewritten with a few calls and a couple of well-timed tears. I opened the door anyway. The winter air outside was sharp. The porch light buzzed. Across the street, a neighbor's TV flickered blue through the blinds. Raleigh looked normal. That was the worst part. How normal the world stays while your marriage cracks in half. I walked to my truck, diaper bag over one shoulder, baby secured against my chest, envelope gripped like it might dissolve if I loosened my fingers. Behind me, the door opened again. Footsteps, voices spilling out. "Come back inside," Claire said. Deb's voice followed, louder now, meant for any listening ears. "He's taking the baby. He's not thinking clearly." Megan added, almost theatrically, "I'm recording for everyone's safety." I turned around and there it was. Another frozen, thumbnail-ready moment. Me on the driveway holding my baby. Claire reaching out with both hands like she's begging. Deb pointing like a prosecutor. Megan with a phone raised. The diaper bag hanging open. My keys in my palm. The envelope visible in the porch light. I could feel my life being framed. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A voicemail this time. No ringtone. Just that subtle vibration. I didn't even have to play it. The transcription preview popped up on my lock screen like a knife sliding under a door. "Hi, this is the lab calling for Claire. We need to confirm the pattern." The rest cut off. I stared at the incomplete word, my heartbeat thundering in my ears, and Claire's face drained of color like she'd seen the same thing from 10 feet away. Then Deb said, clear as day, "Give him 10 minutes. If he doesn't come back in, I'm calling the police." Claire whispered, "Dad, don't. Please." And I realized I hadn't heard Claire call me Dad in weeks. I looked at the voicemail preview again, my thumb hovering over play, because if I played it out loud, I might finally hear the name. And that name, whatever it was, felt like it could blow up everything. I didn't play the voicemail out loud, not on the driveway, not with Deb's finger pointed like a gun and Megan's phone held up like a badge. I just locked my screen and slid the phone into my pocket like it was hot. 10 minutes, Deb repeated, louder, projecting her voice toward the quiet street. He's not in his right mind. Claire took a step off the porch, hands shaking. Please, come inside. We can talk. You'll what? I cut in, and my voice cracked right down the middle. I hated that it cracked. I hated that it sounded like exactly what they wanted it to sound like. Explain the envelope? Explain HR? Explain why your mom is timing my life like a hostage negotiation? Megan's eyes flicked to the diaper bag. You're clutching that bag like you're going to run. I looked down. The zipper was half open. The manila envelope was still in my hand. My keys were digging into my palm hard enough to leave marks. 3 objects. 3 reasons for them to call me dangerous. I forced my fingers to loosen around the keys and clipped them to my belt loop. I adjusted my daughter against my chest, careful, slow, deliberate, like I was defusing a bomb while an audience watched. I'm not running, I said. I'm leaving this driveway before you turn me into a story. Deb stepped forward again, blocking the sidewalk. She didn't look scared. She looked practiced. You don't get to leave when there's a baby involved. Claire whispered, Please don't make this worse. That phrase, make it worse, settled into my ribs. It implied the disaster already existed and I was the one about to cause it, not the one stumbling through it. I took 1 step to the side, and Deb mirrored me, like a bouncer, like a gatekeeper. My daughter let out a thin cry, a tired, confused sound. Claire's face flinched like she'd been slapped, and then it happened. One of those tiny, ordinary moments that somehow feels like the whole world leaning in. My daughter reached a little hand up and grabbed my hoodie string, tugging it toward her mouth. I let her. The tension in her grip, the way she soothed herself without any of us. It broke something in me. I lowered my voice. You want her safe? Then stop escalating. Megan said, almost smug. We're documenting. That's not escalating. The quiet dread hit me again, the kind that doesn't scream. It just quietly rearranges your future. I pictured a report, a clip, an HR folder, a judge watching 10 seconds of my face while my baby cried and Deb narrated my episode. Claire's phone lit up on the porch. She glanced at it and her expression shifted. Panic, then a hard swallow like she was forcing it down. What? Deb asked. Claire shook her head too fast. Nothing. Deb's eyes narrowed. Show me. Claire didn't. She put her phone face down on the porch rail. That tiny gesture did more than any confession could have. It told me whatever was on that screen wasn't meant for me. I took a breath, then another. Move, I told Deb. I'm going to park around the corner. I'm staying close. If you call the police, you're doing it for a reason that has nothing to do with safety. Deb's mouth thinned. Oh, so now you're threatening me. No, I said, and my voice was steadier now, cold even. I'm stating reality. For a second, nobody moved. Then my neighbor's porch light across the street clicked on. A curtain shifted. Someone had heard the word police. Deb noticed too. She straightened her shoulders, raised her voice half an inch. Claire, go inside. He's worked up. Worked up, like I was a toddler. Claire's eyes were glossy. Please, please. I didn't argue anymore. I walked, slow, visible hands, my daughter tight against my chest, diaper bag on my shoulder, envelope tucked under my forearm like a folder. Megan kept recording until I was at my truck. I drove 1 block over and parked under a streetlight, engine off, hands shaking on the wheel. The cabin smelled like old coffee and baby wipes and cold air seeping in through the vents. I set my daughter in her car seat in the back, clipped her in carefully, then just sat there in the dark, listening to her breathe. That's when I finally played the voicemail, but with the volume down so low it was basically a whisper. A woman's voice, calm and professional. "Hi, this is the lab calling for Claire. We need to confirm the paternity panel details before releasing results. Please call us back." No name, no result, just the word paternity, spoken like it was normal, like it wasn't a grenade. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. "Stop digging. Go to sleep. You have hair in the morning." My stomach dropped. I stared at it, reread it, then stared again like maybe it would change into something less insane. I typed back without thinking. Me. "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then my phone rang. Same unknown number. I didn't answer. I couldn't. If I answered, they'd have my voice. If I answered, they'd get a clip of me breathing too hard, saying something sharp, sounding unstable. I watched it ring out until it stopped. Then another text popped in. Unknown. "You take that baby out of the house, you lose everything." Quiet dread again, thicker this time. Not fear of a person, fear of a system, fear of how many people were now involved, how coordinated this felt. I took screenshots and forwarded them to my own email with a subject line I'd be able to find later. Unknown texts. My hands were so shaky I misspelled it twice. When I looked up, there was a car idling across the street. Headlights off. Just a dark shape sitting there like it belonged. I waited. The car waited. I stared at my own living room window a block away, imagining Deb inside, telling a story about me to anyone who'd listen. I imagined Megan uploading clips. I imagined Claire upstairs, holding her phone face down, pretending not to see whatever was blowing up her screen. And the envelope, still under my forearm, felt heavier than my daughter did. I couldn't open it in the truck. Not like this. If the truth was inside, I didn't want to discover it alone in a parking spot while someone watched from a dark car. I wanted control over at least one thing, so I did the only safe move I could think of. I drove. Not far, just to a 24-hour diner off the highway where the lights were bright and nobody could whisper "kidnapping" without other people hearing. I carried my daughter inside, diaper bag on one shoulder, envelope in my jacket pocket. The hostess took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. She just put me in a booth along the wall. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and a grilled cheese I couldn't taste. I changed my daughter's diaper in the cramped bathroom, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and for a minute, just a minute, my brain pretended this was normal, like we were just a tired dad and a baby on a late-night drive. Then my phone buzzed with an email. Not HR. A calendar invite. Meeting updated, additional attendee. My chest tightened. I clicked. It didn't show a name, just guest. But the note field, 2 lines, plain and cruel, made my blood run cold. Employee has exhibited concerning behavior at home. Documentation available upon request. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Documentation. Megan. Deb. Claire. I imagined that driveway video labeled as Home Incident slid across a conference table tomorrow morning while I sat there trying not to react like a human being. My daughter fussed, and I bounced her gently, pressing my lips to her forehead, feeling my eyes burn. My hands were steady with her. Always steady with her. That was the part nobody cared to document. A waitress walked by and gave me a look that wasn't judgment. It was pity. That was somehow worse. I pulled the envelope out on the table, finally. The paper edge caught the light. My fingers found the flap. I froze, because right then my daughter's tiny hand reached out, like she sensed what I was about to do, and grabbed the envelope with surprising strength. Her grip crumpled the corner, leaving a little dent. A stupid detail. A small, meaningless baby dent. But it felt like a sign that whatever was inside wasn't just paperwork. It was a before and after line. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't unknown. It was Claire. I stared at her name until my eyes ached. I answered, voice low. What? All I heard at first was breathing. Hers, uneven. Then, faintly, another voice in the background. Deb's. Claire whispered, "They're calling someone." "Who?" "I don't know," she said, and I could hear tears in the way she swallowed. "I'm trying to stop them, but—" "Stop? What, Claire?" A pause. A sob caught, strangled, and then she said the one sentence that made my entire body go cold. "They told me if you read what's inside that envelope, I'll never see the baby again." I stared at the envelope on the diner table, my daughter's hand still resting on it like she owned it. Outside the window, a car pulled into the parking lot and stopped directly in front of the diner entrance. Two silhouettes moved inside it. Then the door opened, and I recognized the walk before I saw the face. My throat went dry. I didn't open the envelope. Not yet. The bell over the diner door chimed, and my stomach dropped before I even looked up. Evan Carlisle, my boss, walked in like he owned the place. A woman in scrubs followed him, badge clipped to her pocket. Megan came last, already filming, her phone held like a weapon, the screen glow washing her knuckles blue. On our table sat the envelope, my keys, a crumpled receipt from the gas station, and my daughter's diaper bag like a tiny suitcase for a life that suddenly didn't feel like mine. I stood so fast, the booth squeaked. My daughter startled in her car seat and let out a thin cry that turned heads. I kept my hands open, visible, the way you do when you know someone is trying to paint you as dangerous. Evan's eyes went straight to the envelope. He didn't sit. He didn't smile. He stopped close enough to crowd me, far enough to claim he wasn't. "This isn't the place," he said softly, like we were in a conference room. "You followed me," I said. "She's upset," he replied. "Your mother-in-law is terrified. HR is involved. Let's de-escalate." De-escalate. The word Deb had used on my driveway like I was a spill to mop up. The nurse cleared her throat. "Sir, I'm here to make sure the baby is safe." "She's fed," I said. "She's clean. She's with me." Megan's camera moved closer. "Say it again," she whispered, almost thrilled. Evan leaned in, voice low. "Do not open that envelope. Give it to Claire. Go home. Tomorrow we talk like adults." "Adults don't show up with backup," I said. My throat felt tight, like my body was trying to swallow my own panic. "Why are you in my family's business?" His jaw flexed once. "Because this has consequences." "For you?" I asked. "Or for me?" He didn't answer. That silence landed heavy. Megan snapped before I could breathe. "It's not your baby." The diner went still. I felt every eye on me on the car seat, on the envelope. My daughter stopped crying and stared at my face like she was waiting for me to decide who I was. In that quiet, the sounds got weirdly sharp. The ice clinking in someone's glass, a fork tapping a plate, my own pulse in my ears. I picked up the envelope with 2 fingers. "If it's not mine," I said quietly, "then whose is it?" Evan's eyes didn't move, not even a blink. That was my answer. I opened it. The paper tore with a small sound that felt too loud in the sudden hush. The report was clinical, neat, merciless. Claire's name, a date, paternity at the top like a headline. My eyes found the line I'd been afraid to read since the moment I first saw that lab logo. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. My knees went weak. I gripped the table hard enough to hurt. Then I saw the alleged father's name. Not mine. Evan Carlisle. My ears rang like I'd been hit. The room tilted. Megan's phone dipped, and for the first time her expression looked less like triumph and more like shock, like she hadn't been told that part. Evan lifted a hand, palm out. Don't what?" My voice came out thin. "Don't understand what you've been doing to me?" I pulled up a screenshot I'd been too scared to show anyone, even myself. Claire's shared calendar, the one she said was just for groceries. The entry sat there in plain text. Prenatal APPT. Evan, confirm. And it was dated the same week she told me she was seeing a friend after work. All the pressure of the last week snapped into focus. The random schedule changes. The HR investigations. The careful phrases, unstable, unfit, risk. My life turned into paperwork while my home turned into a courtroom. I held my phone up. "You remember this?" I asked, and I read the message out loud, slowly so the whole booth could hear. "You take that baby out of the house, you lose everything." Evan didn't deny it. He just stared at the screen like he was annoyed I'd found the wiring inside the walls. "And the voicemail," I said, thumb shaking as I hit play. The lab's automated voice filled the diner, a reminder about paternity results, polite and cold, like it was calling about a missed appointment. The nurse shifted, eyes flicking between Evan and the paper in my hands. "Sir, is that—" Evan cut her off without looking. "This doesn't need to be public." "Everything about my life became public the moment you decided my daughter was a liability," I said. He stepped closer. "Claire panicked. Deb called me. She said you'd disappear with the baby." Deb. Of course Deb. The family war wasn't just screaming and slammed doors. It was whispers, group chats, a story written about me while I was still living it. I looked down at my daughter. Her small hand reached toward my shirt, fingers curling into fabric like it was the only solid thing in the world. In that moment, the paper in my hand felt like acid, but the weight in my arms felt like truth. "This report doesn't change who gets up at 3 a.m., I said, staring at Evan. "It doesn't change who knows her cries. It doesn't change who she reaches for." Megan's voice broke, weaker now. "You can't just take her." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give them the footage they wanted. I unbuckled the car seat slowly, lifted my daughter against my chest, and she settled instantly. Warm cheek to my shoulder, a tiny sigh like she'd been holding her breath too. Evan, Megan, the nurse, me, 4 adults locked in place around a baby and a piece of paper, like a frozen frame you could slap on a thumbnail and nobody would need context to feel the panic. The nurse spoke carefully. "Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight?" I nodded once. "Yes." Evan's mouth tightened. "If you do this," he said, "you'll regret it." I met his eyes. "I regret trusting any of you." I slid the report back into the envelope, took one clear photo of the page with his name on it, and tucked everything inside my jacket like it was evidence from a crime scene. My other hand never left my daughter's back. Then I walked out into the cold night with her held close, the diner's bell chiming behind me like a door locking. I didn't know what Claire would do next. I didn't know what Deb would invent. I didn't know what HR would try to pin on me. But for the first time since the envelope showed up in our house, I knew the real fight wasn't about biology. It was about whether they could bully me into letting go.